Okay, let's see how these pencils perform. So I decided that I want to use a lot of colors to really see how they blend. So I'm going to start with, it says cream. Now the one thing I will say about these pencils, I'm not a big fan of their naming. Like some of these, like to me, this is definitely more of a yellow than a cream. But in the end, that is such a, like, almost like a careless for me, because I'm going to number these, and the only time I will even care about the name is if I'm telling y'all. That's it. So it doesn't matter to me, but I do find that a lot of these pencils, this one's Sunburst Yellow, definitely their naming is to be desired. Now I am using these very, very lightly. Not too concerned if I go over these clouds because I'll probably use like acrylics on them. But as you can see, I feel like these are blending nicely, and they lay down a lot of pigment for as far back as I'm holding them. But my idea is just to kind of create, I don't know if this would be maybe more of a sunrise kind of setting, with just a little bit of this yellow here. Next, I'm going to use dark chrome yellow. I kind of struggled thinking about this because when I see the little bears, to me it looks more like they are, you know, they're sunbathing, right? So I was a little hesitant to do this type of sky, but in the end I thought, well, I'm the boss of my own coloring book, and who cares? And I think it's going to look cute when it's done, if not realistic. Next up is orange. It's always kind of a struggle to get into the side, right? And I do have trouble controlling my pencil this far back. But these lay down an awful lot of pigment. They're a very fast, smooth lay down. Now this is a budget pencil, and I have so far been pretty impressed with the little bit that I've worked with them. Obviously not a ton because I've just essentially swatched, but I did do a couple of little blending tests on a regular piece of paper, which I'm just going to stick a piece of paper here. I'm going to bring this orange down just a little bit, but I want this ultimately to be more pink down here, like down below. Maybe bring this just a little across here. Okay, next up is violet pink. This is kind of a hot pink color. I think I'm going to lay in dark chrome yellow here. And then blend it with this. It's just so hard, this small little area. Don't want to get it in my bear too much. Okay. I'm going to bring this pink down just a little bit here. ever so lightly as I go down here. So I'm going to add some blue as well. Okay. Probably went down a little too low on that side. You know, doesn't matter. Blend it out. This is only our first layer, right? Once again, I think I'm gonna bring this orangey color in here a little bit. But look how well these are all blending with each other. Put a little orange there too. As light as I'm going right now, I'm not too worried if I go over my palm trees. Should be able to erase it. So maybe just a little pink in there. And then I'm going to go in with that lightest color and bring it down. See how that's kind of turning it a little orangey, which is perfect. And then we'll let it kind of bleed into that pink. Okay. All right. Next up, I am going to go in with a little bit of manganese violet. And then pale violet. This isn't an exact science, so whatever colors you have, okay. And then last is my cornflower blue. I'm gonna bring this all the way down here. I'm not sure if this is supposed to be sky right here. Just a tiny bit at the bottom there. Blend it up as much as you would like. Okay, and let's repeat our process. Where's my light? Oh. Kind of fading it out into these other colors. Okay. Next up is that Sunburst Yellow. These pencils blend beautifully. Now it definitely helps that I'm sticking to the same color family. That always helps your blend. And I'm using quite a few pencils. That'll also help your blend. But I must say, these blend absolutely beautifully. Okay, next up is the Chrome Yellow. I am going all the way out to the side, even though that's where I laid down my orange. And I do want to try and keep my strokes as much as possible kind of in a more horizontal fashion, because that makes sense with the sky, right? Blending it down a little into our pinks. It'll help make that transition nice. There's only so much you can do in these small areas, so you can do your best. Okay, I don't think I'm going to go down a little as far there. I'm going to bring this out a little bit more. Okay. All right, next up is our hot pink. What is that called? Violet pink. Make a good transition into the pink here. Add just a hint of the pink here and here, not much. Your sky can vary from side to side. It doesn't have to be, you know, like a rigid line across of color. Just keep an eye on it and see what looks natural to you. And if you think it's too linear, just keep adding layers until you got it the way you want it. I mean, that's the key, is just lots of layers, and then stop and take a look at the page as a whole and see what's working. Do you have something that looks, you know, like, to me, there's like a very rigid line right there that I'll try and fix when I go in with my purple. You want to check your vibrancy and be like, is this too vibrant compared to the rest of the page? Do I need to add more somewhere? Does that make sense? Like, see, here I added more orange, whereas here I just have pink, right? So I may take a little bit of my orange down, just a little, just to get a little bit of this color, because this side doesn't have any of that color. Not because they have to match, but I like that color. I think that's a beautiful color. Okay, I'm liking this. All right, let's go in. Let's get it, our manganese violet in there. And I don't want to take over my pink, but I do want to blend it a little bit into this purple. Okay. Pale violet. And I feel like I need a little more, yeah, maybe even just a touch of pink in here, just to match it up a little bit. Try not to skip these little center pieces when you color, because then they won't have the same color blends and will look a little off. You want your sky to, you know, whatever sky is here, you want to be here. And sometimes it's hard to duplicate that when you go back, because you don't remember what colors you exactly put there. Okay. And now just a little touch of that cornflower blue. And you can essentially do this as many times as you'd like until you get the color you want. Now I'm going to use a pink matter just to get a little more color in here. If I use the hot pink, I feel like that pink would overpower it a little bit because it's a very bright pink. So I'm not burnishing it, but I'm definitely blending it out with a lighter pink, if that makes sense. So I get the vibrancy from my initial lay down of that, whatever it is, bright violet or whatever color that was, that hot pink color. But now this pink is evening it out without adding that intensity. Now not every pencil will work this way, but as a rule you can do that. I don't want to take that pink too much into that. In fact, I'm just gonna try and erase that pink a little bit there. And then go back in with that cream color. We'll have a little bit residual. Yeah. All right. So now do that as many times as you want until you've got it all blended the way you want. Here you could go in with the white. And just in the center piece, blend it out a little bit with this white. Now if you really wanted an intenser white, use something like a Prisma white. There's a limit to these budget whites, how opaque they are. I'm going to add just ever so lightly here so that the kind of the center is a little bit lighter. Okay, I hope I was in camera. That's how I do a topical, kind of a tropical sun picture, maybe a sunrise, maybe a sunset, not really sure. Is it realistic? No. Is it kind of fun? Yes. Randomly lay in some color. I'm going to be doing a lot of blending, so I don't want to go over the entire thing. Now I'm using Caribbean Sky. This is a very light color. It will be very good for like burnishing, blending the colors out. And then I'm going to use that cornflower blue. Use the artist's lines here to kind of guide this blue. And I'm using, I don't know, maybe a medium light pressure. I'm not like glazing it, but I'm not bearing down either. These pencils are Woomer, and they definitely have a faster lay down than some. Not a detriment at all, but something to be aware of. And I'm going back in with that light ultramarine, just kind of blending, filling in gaps. Ultimately, these are probably going to be the two main colors. That lighter color will be more of the highlight. This is Caribbean Sky. Get my white paper. I always like to put a piece of white paper down so that my pencil has somewhere to go when it goes off, or otherwise it drops like however thick your book is, about an inch. And it can, I don't know, it just feels jarring to me. You can see how the pencil wear down, so I'm rotating it a little. Just kind of filling in those gaps. Going back with my darker. Just kind of blending with those other colors. Just adding another layer, bringing out some of these darker tones. We're just going to keep going back and forth doing this. Okay, next up, light ultramarine. I want to rotate to where I have you know, the right side, the side I haven't been using before. And I feel like this should not be white here on the very edge. I want a little bit less white here. Not trying to flip you off there. Just trying to hold the paper a little bit. Okay, and then back with our Caribbean Sea. Just in the lighter areas. I'm not trying to go over the darker areas with this color. I'm simply trying to blend where the light is to the medium. Once again, back and forth until I get kind of contrast that I'm looking for. And we want to start filling in that tooth. This is really good paper in this book. It'll take a lot of layers. Really like these books. This is Diane DeFore's Teddy Bear Therapie, or I'll show you the cover because it's in French. And I'm not a Frenchie. I don't parlez-vous français. Well, I guess I just asked, do I speak French? And the answer is no. I'm going to add just a little bit of this dark, kind of along the edge here. Okay, now I'm going to go in with white. And I'm trying to use the Woomer pencils. If I was just coloring this, I mean this whole page is about how these pencils work. So I'm trying to use these pencils. I personally really like white Prisma. I like the Derwent Chinese white. I like the Holbein soft white. Those are my favorite white pencils. But I want to use this one because while I might make a short out of this, I definitely am looking to see how these pencils perform. And I gotta say, I very much enjoy working with them. They remind me a lot of the Avazar London pencils, which, if you've been on my channel, you know I really like those pencils. And I used to always recommend those as a starter set because you could get 130 colors for $30 to $45 depending on the kind of sale that was going on. And they stopped selling them in the United States. My understanding is you can still get them in Amazon UK, though I haven't been looking, so I don't want to say for sure. Okay, so down here, what I've done is I just took a little ruler and just created more squares here, because I'm going to use like a little pattern of colors here. So I'm going to alternate between cobalt teal blue, the lightest color, bluish turquoise, and Prussian blue. And maybe, possibly, Caribbean Sea. Yeah. So, let's get started. Just erase my line here. There is a pattern here. Insofar as, you know, I'm not creating, I want this to be random, not too much coffee, I guess. The more random, the better, I think. I'll probably have to go back in once I put the other colors in. Maybe. Okay, this one, that was Prussian blue, this is cobalt teal. I'm thinking of doing is going over this with a glaze pen too when I'm done. I think that'd make it kind of fun. Or some glossy accents would work too. You know, something just to make it look shiny. Do you like to alter your coloring books like this, where you do something a little different maybe than what the artist designed? Or do you like to just color things the way they say? I don't usually make a lot of alterations. Ellie, what's up? Her Highness. She's spending the day with me today. So what are you guys up to today? I think I want a little more of these teal kind of colors. So I'll probably be back to add more. Both of that light color and this one. Some of these to be probably the more predominant color. I pushed a little hard, I guess. To be fair, that was a very sharp point that I got it to. These pencils are not prone to breaking. I had one lead kind of fall out of the pencil, kind of how Prismacolor can do sometimes. My guess is maybe slight damage in shipping or something. But then after that, it sharpened right back up and didn't break. So, I don't know. I think overall these pencils are good for lack of breakage. Okay, let's go with our white, which is the Caribbean Sea. This color is very light. I like it, but it's definitely a hard color to see. Okay, I'm going to go back in, I think, with this lightest color. Okay, and then the cobalt turquoise. Should probably take your time. You know me, I'm not that patient. Should I be a little more patient? Yes. So do as I say, not as I do. Okay, go back into the dark now. Do this, maybe add a fifth color in. We're going to use light aqua, deep cobalt green, and cobalt turquoise. Did I do that totally backwards? Yes. Can we fix it? Sure. Let's fix it. Okay. All right, let's try again, shall we? I'm going to take a little bit of black here. Okay, next up I am going to use Warm Gray 3, City Gray, and Walnut Brown, just to kind of lay in some color for this bear. Now, I am not trying to make these bears look realistic. I'm not trying to give them hair or fur or anything like that. These are very whimsical bears, and sometimes I think if you try and be too realistic on a very cartoonish picture, it can look a little off. Just my opinion. So I am basically just coloring him, and I'm going to use a little bit of the darker to add a little shading in the shadowy areas, but really absolutely nothing fancy about this. So as always, everything's a little sped up. Okay, next up I'm going to take that walnut brown, and I'm just going to very dashy put yeah, that is a word. Come on, guys. I'm just going to put these into the palm tree, just kind of using the artist drawn lines. Okay, here I'm taking that Warm Gray 3 and just adding it here to the nose, and then blending it out with white, just to make it a little lighter. Now, I'm going to run this over, kind of blending out all of this brown, and then I'm going to add in just a little bit of that matter, pink matter. And the reason I do this, or not pink matter, this is seashell pink. The reason I do this is I just thought it was cute, like maybe he was getting a little sunburn. But I don't know, I kind of wanted to tie in the pink a little bit, and I just thought it looked whimsical and fun. So I'm using a very light hand here, and then just kind of blending it all out with the white. Now, guys, normally, if you've watched any of my videos, you know I don't normally do them on 4x speed, but this is kind of a longer video, and it's very straightforward coloring. You always have the option to slow it down on your end. You can watch it back at 0.25 speed. So at this point, I just felt like this blue wasn't really, I don't know, it wasn't feeling cohesive with the sky. And I thought, well, maybe the sky would be casting a little bit of that pink into our pool area. So this is that violet pink that I used in the sky. And once again, I'm whisper soft over the top here, mostly in the lighted areas, but just randomly adding a light, almost a glaze of this pink. And personally, I really like how this turned out. Now, once again, is it realistic? Yeah, not really. But in the end, I feel like this page comes together. Okay, at this point, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do because I really didn't like the grays in this palette. And in addition to that, I was feeling like the trees were very vibrant. If I would put something like a gray or a neutral here, I just felt like it would make the picture a little off balance. This is a very colorful picture, and I wanted to carry that intensity throughout. So I'm using the teal, the cobalt teal blue, and the bluish turquoise from our mini tiles in the decking. And I think it really helps tie the whole picture together. So that's essentially what I'm doing here. Now that chair on the left, I really struggled with where the slats were. I think I colored something off, and now it looks very wonky to my eye. Now, if you look at any sort of stair, usually the part that's horizontal, or wait, vertical, is darker. So that's essentially what I'm doing here, is I'm trying to create a little dimension and make this look more normal. And I really think that helped a lot. I'm taking that Prussian blue and just adding a little shadowing there. Actually, I think that might have been black. And here I'm just going back in with the water, deepening up some of those colors that I used before. I think that was cornflower blue. Here I'm using burnt ochre to fill in our trees. Now here I am using a little bit of that cobalt teal blue, and I'm just adding a little bit to the trees. It doesn't make a huge difference, but it does a little bit, and it really helps kind of tie them together. That light aqua color really turns more into the teal. Next up, I thought, well, how can I tie in the rest of the sky? Usually when I do a picture, I try and use colors in more than one place, unless it's supposed to be like the main element that pops off the page, right? But in a busier picture like this one, I try and use the colors more than once. So what I'm going to do here is I'm using the light cadmium yellow, and I'm going in and basing the entire chair with this. And then I'm going to go in with that sunburst yellow, which is kind of the yellow orange. And I'm just going to add a little bit of depth where they kind of sit, right? Like in that groove there. Now here I'm just adding some walnut brown into the shadows and on the parts of the chair that kind of dip down. This just helps give it a little more depth and dimension. I think it looks nice. Now, once again, ignore what I do on this chair because the top of the chair is fine. The seat is off. And, not a whole lot I can do about it at this point. But anyway, that's what I'm doing here. Okay, here I'm adding a little bit of that sunburst yellow like I mentioned. Now, bear in mind that I'm putting it at the back of the seat, at the very front ledge, and I fade it, like when I'm at the back where your bum would be, I fade it up. I don't go all the way to the top. It just adds a little more dimension this way. Okay, next up is our Speedos. So for this little guy, I'm using the cobalt teal blue, and then I'm going to go in with bluish turquoise just around, the edge around his leg and for his waistband. Just to add a little tiny bit of depth, but this is nothing, no fancy shading here. And then I'm going to do the little waistband in that bluish turquoise. Okay, so here, sorry I skipped it, but we colored every other square orange and every other square pink. And then I'm going in with the orange for the waistband, and I decided to do the little tie and pink. I just thought it would be fun to bring those colors in from the sky and bring the teal from the pool up into that guy's little outfit. Okay, for the diving board and this little pole, I am basically using the Prussian blue that I used in the pool tile, the darkest color. And I'm just doing a basic 2 coats of Prussian blue. Nothing fancy. Maybe 3 coats, whatever it needs to feel complete. And then around the edges, I am just going in with a little bit of black, just once again to give it a little dimension. We're almost done. We're starting to add some of the details. I'm coloring in noses and the sunglasses. I probably should have just colored them in completely black and then added white. Next, I'm just using my Posca pen to go around and eliminate the outline of this cloud up in the sky. I just think it looks better. That's a personal preference. I'm going to add a little bit of white to the sunglasses and some highlights here and there. I'm also filling that cloud completely in with Posca. The next step is just simply, I'm touching up some of the tile. If the white looks a little dull, just adding in a little bit of white here and there. And then I'm looking around, and on whimsical pages like this, I really like the look of Posca highlights. And so I put some on his glasses, on their nose, a little bit randomly on the chair. Just kind of making little squiggly lines, little dots and dashes. If you don't like where you put it, if you work quickly, you can eliminate the white. Now, what I do here is I put it on that diving board, and I decide later that I don't want it there, so I just colored over it with a colored pencil. Where you put your highlights is more of a personal choice, in my opinion. I decide here I wanted to add a little polka dots to his shorts, which I think is really cute. And then I do go back up and catch his hat. Next, I took the glaze pen and I just went over each tiny little square with the glaze pen. I started off trying to go over like the whole amount, but some of the really dark shade would sometimes smear into the white, and I really didn't want that. And then second up, I just felt like it wasn't looking right. And so I went over each individual little square. In the end, I'm not 100% that I like it. I like the concept of it, but I don't know. It didn't come out exactly the way I wanted it. I hope you liked this non-traditional color along with me. I enjoyed working with the Woomer pencils. I think they're a very good budget set. I think they blended beautifully, and I would highly recommend them if you're looking for those type of pencils. So here's our finished product, and as always, thank you for joining me. Happy coloring. Thank you for watching another video from Jazzydoodledesigns. If you enjoy adult coloring content, please consider subscribing. You can now find me on Instagram and Facebook as well. I welcome all comments and suggestions. Don't forget to like the video before you go. And until next time, take care.